Step back three for the tie. Oh! He's done it again! They get it to him. More in space. A burst of speed. A first down for Purdue. He's still going. More. Cuts back. Touchdown. Oh, I like that. Each one more.
What is going on? You get a double dose of the BXP crew this week. A little pre-Thanksgiving, a little post-Thanksgiving, football, basketball. It's been a good week for the Boilermakers and the BXP crew. Welcome. I'd like to introduce, well, wrong way, Frank and Dylan. Russ and Damon are sleeping off turkey or whatever they're doing.
Russ is in the home and they took away the internet.
They took away, they just shut the switch off to
he
the
started
internet.
yelling at basketball games and they're like, all right, this is enough.
This old bastard.
We can't be doing this.
Right. But we want to remind you guys that we are part of the Big Banter Sports Network, a bunch of 13 different teams and schools that are covered. Everybody's super awesome there. It's a great time. We do the collabs like we did a couple days ago with the LEO podcast.
Great pod that was a lot of fun.
That was a really fun time. Be sure to check out Cincy Blitzboards at cincyblitzboards.com. They are a boiler ran organization. Dylan's got one down here.
Have you not got one yet?
No, I've got mine.
In your garage.
It's in my garage. It's mounted up in my garage.
Ooh.
He uses his. He plays. He plays the game. Yeah.
Mine's just so like fancy looking. I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
So.
No, they look so nice. I wouldn't want to.
No.
Like risk.
You should order two.
It up. Yeah.
One to mount and then one to play.
They're making me a couple for Christmas presents.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
It's the Lord's birthday. It's someone's birthday.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But those are a sponsor of the podcast. They are a Boilermaker owned company and they do great work. Also, Martin Vintage, an awesome, like, I love old school shirts and like the old school things and stuff like that. Russ really does because that's about his time as starting at it. Yeah, he was there to see it all. You know,
brings
the moon landing, the Gettysburg Address and stuff. So check out their vintage Purdue apparel. If you use BXP at checkout, you get 10% off your order. They are a great company, and they are in. Dylan can't do math.
No, it's weird. It's different. Okay. One, I can't do math, and two, it's backward. It's my dumb brain. All right, listen, I tried.
Yeah. Well, it's almost a year to the day that we had another fantastic week for Purdue basketball. And I think that all the boys here could agree that it was another great week. The boys in black and gold traveled out to Maui and played in the Maui Invitational, playing against probably the most stacked field that preseason.
Dylan vanished again. Yeah, like that. That's a weekly thing now. Dylan just disappears.
Yeah,
so,
that was probably
right.
But Frank, would you agree that is probably outside the PK 85 last year, and that might be a little bit of my own bias there, one of the most stacked preseason Thanksgiving tournaments that we've had in recent memory?
I wish I would have looked that up. But yeah, I can't think of a more stacked field.
And that PK 85 last year was insane.
It was no joke. Yeah. And what's crazy is that, they put these together like over a year out. So
at least a year. Cause I know 2024's hey buddy, the San Diego Invitational or whatever it is. That's already set. Mm-hmm. And I think that's got a pretty decent lineup. I think Texas, maybe Alabama or Arkansas or something. There's a couple decent teams in there. And that whole tournament was filled with really great games.
Oh yeah.
Be it Marquette and Kansas was really good. Obviously, all the Purdue games were really close. Even Gonzaga, even though we won by 11, was still a really solid game for most of it.
Yeah, I
But
think watching Marquette and Kansas, I thought Marquette did a good job of making Kansas play Marquette's game. And I honestly got a little nervous. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
Marquette looked really good because Kansas is not able to do what they want to do right now.
No.
Um,
So the thing that worried me a lot was because I was still stuck in last year's mode with how slow of a pace we played and how much Marquette sped up Kansas into being uncomfortable. But it seemed like during that Marquette game, there was only about a 2.5 minute sequence where we felt kind of out of control. But the rest of the time seemed very, very clean.
Yeah, I think we struggled to get into a rhythm at the beginning, but like guys were still scoring, right?
Yeah.
Trey Kaufman-Renn hit a pop three that was huge.
Yeah.
Braden got to the basket. I think
I mean, we went 7 for 9 in the first half from 3.
Yeah, and like while we were scoring, we weren't necessarily in a flow, but I just felt like it almost seemed like our goal was to score outside of Zach. Zach didn't have his first basket until like the 13-minute mark of the first half, nor did he attempt one.
Which honestly, that's something I want to see against those really good teams because I think I blew it up during the group chat. The Marquette and Tennessee game, I'm convinced last year we don't win that game because of how much we rely on Zach Edey.
Yeah, and I think, even though Purdue continues to score, like they continue to win those minutes without Zach Edey. This narrative that Purdue relies so heavily on Zach Edey has just continued to perpetuate, and that is true to some extent. But like, what team doesn't rely on their best player,
Right.
to a degree? Which is that's just kind of silly. But yeah, I mean, Braden Smith drives to the basket on the first possession of that game, and TKR notices it and just steals off his man and like lets him have it. But man,
I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like the team was very close last year, but this year it seems like it's a lot more connected. Like guys are reacting because they know what other guys are going to do instead of what the play is designed to do, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think Braden deserves a decent amount of attention in this episode because like we've been seeing it all season. Like in transition, just let Edey set a high ball screen for Braden, and if the defense goes under, if they drop on him, he's gonna fire. Yeah, I think Tennessee respected it a little bit, but Marquette was the first team to really, really respect it, and that's why we were hitting from 3. It was kind of this domino effect.
Yeah,
guys were switching on Braden, getting mismatches down low, forcing double teams, getting guys wide open in 3.
Yeah,
and like that's what you want. You want Edey to draw the double team and find open shooters and have them go down.
Yeah. And I think the interesting part too was, we always talk about it's either score down low or score from 3. And Braden has really meshed that in between. He's hitting that foul line extended jumper almost consistently.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you do expect it to go in at this point.
Yeah, at this point, that's kind of what I've just kind of thought will happen. So it's been nice.
That seems very, I don't want to use the phrase anti-Painter, but I can't think of a better one, right? Because Painter's a very fact-driven guy. And like, we're in the era of this offensive explosion where, especially at the pro level, teams are just setting new offensive records every season. And how they're doing it is they're just understanding that like the mid-range shot is like kind of a last resort. And, Painter's tried to emulate that. But I think that, with how much we seem to be embracing it this season, it's Painter talked about making changes, and maybe that's what, one of them is that, we saw it against Xavier a lot where they were giving that shot to him and he was taking it. So, as long as he keeps going in, keep doing it.
Yeah. And I think he's definitely built his confidence up because it seemed like last year he was very indecisive in some of his decision making going into Big Ten season. Like he was very aggressive through non-con. And then once they Boiler Up OHIO podcast beat those stupid Wolverines.
Please. The entire country is on your side this week.
Really? I think this is like the first time ever. Well, no, I mean, you got to think a lot of people probably want Ohio State to win, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the
Yeah.
entire country is rooting for Ohio State,
Except
right
for the
now.
state of Michigan. But
Yeah.
who gives a damn about them?
Right. But no, I definitely think that
Ooh,
Wow.
got a
Wow.
nice comment here. It's in quotes too.
Yeah.
Hey, can we get a Mackie background, Dylan? Yeah, for sure.
To be
Sees Ross
fair,
eight.
I don't have access to the insides of
He doesn't.
StreamYard
Yeah.
here.
This
So
our
that's not
wonderful
on me,
streaming
Damon. How
platform,
about
which is wonderful. We're not going to complain at all, but they charge you a lot of money if you want to have, another admin to be able to
hey
lock
Damon,
in
where
and
are you? Huh?
Oh!
At least I'm on the podcast.
Yeah.
At least I'm here. At least I show up twice a
Nerd.
week. Where are you? You have a family and a child and whatnot. What a shame.
So question for you all. Over the summer when we became affiliated with Big Banter, all of us podcasts, we communicate and we kind of jab each other. But one of the things that was talked about at some point during the summer was I'm sick and tired of hearing about Braden Smith. Sick and tired of hearing about Braden Smith. Braden Smith's overrated. I'm sick and tired of hearing about how Braden Smith's taken the next step and is the next biggest thing. Has Braden met our expectations, or does he still have a little bit to go, or has he overachieved?
For
How do we
this
feel
year?
about Braden? Yeah, for right now.
So for this year, in my opinion, he's met those expectations because I think he still has the opportunity to grow because there's still times that he kind of goes a little Carson or Ivy-esque where he tries to do too much. He tries to make that really zippy pass that gets stolen, or he takes kind of like a contested three when we've passed the ball once. But he has improved immensely in the last 12 months. So he's done everything I'd expected, but I still think there is more room to damn it. I still think there's more room to grow for his play, which is kind of scary because he's definitely at a point where I think he could be an honorable mention or a third team All-American.
Yeah, and Jordan Sperber from Hoop Vision, who's a fantastic watch. If none of you all have seen him, but he put out a great video today about how Purdue was able to win the Maui Invitational, and he dropped a stat which I need to confirm, but he's top 25 in the country at shooting coming off of ball screens, which is crazy.
Yeah,
especially crazy for a guy who is 3-star recruit, had one high major offer as well. So that's just, a testament to Painter and his, evaluation abilities. But, we do have a comment here so far. He's turning the ball over at the same rate, but he's getting more assists. That is true. His turnover percentage is like exactly the same as it was last season. It's hovering right around 21.
Yeah.
But his assist percentage is up 12%. So, I mean, and that even trickles up to the pro level too. The best passers have the most turnovers.
Seems like a high risk, high reward.
Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes like, he's going to be the guy that's going to make the highlight reel pass. And he's also going to be the guy that's going to be like, what were you doing? That's, that was kind of silly. Interesting comment here. How he used to dribble himself into a trap made me want to walk into traffic. Yeah. I mean, the Big Ten tournament from last season comes to mind, especially. But yeah, I think schematically we're doing some things to kind of relieve some pressure off of him, like sending more guys up to help.
You see a lot more back cuts and things like that. And I will agree with Damon. Lance has taken a lot of stress off of Braden. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting given Lance's experience, mostly at a point guard, we're still having Braden take the ball off the court in these pressure situations. So Painter must have a lot of trust in him.
It's either trust in him or he wants a trusted safety valve.
Yeah.
For him to have if he gets into trouble. But
one thing I thought about Braden, when I think about last season, it felt like he didn't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. He didn't know what his role was, right? He didn't know if he was supposed to be a pass first guy or a score first guy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's hard as a freshman, especially as a freshman starter.
A redshirt
now
freshman,
it's like
where you were playing high school teams a year ago.
Yeah. And so now he understands that, like, hey man, if you're open, shoot it.
Right.
Like if you have a driving lane, take it. And we're seeing him score through traffic. We're seeing him.
He's taking contact.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's
I almost feel like Painter's just giving him a green light. If he thinks he can score, he can go.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's good to, it's good to know that his decision making has, earned Painter's respect in that regard.
Damon here, going to be interested to see how things continue as team starts to figure out Purdue and see how Purdue adapts to that. I think we've kind of seen that a little bit.
Yeah, I
in
would agree
Maui.
with that, Chris. Yeah.
I think that we saw a lot of like, was it Gonzaga or Tennessee that was cool with playing Edie one-on-one to prevent the three?
I was a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
Gonzaga, yeah.
Yeah, Gonzaga. And like that's where I think that we did a better job of just sticking to the plan. And Damon, I totally understand being 6 games in, but my thought process is those 6 games aren't against like Southern Mississippi for the mute. So a lot of those teams, these honestly, I would say the Tennessee and the Marquette game felt like Final Four games.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone against a lot of different types of defense. We've gone against Tennessee, who, Rick Barnes said going into the half that, hey, we're playing a physical game, and no one decided to inform the refs. And then once they complain about fouls, immediately following that,
even though there's 162 fouls in that game.
Yeah, I mean, so we saw, I mean, and God, just to talk about that for a second, how egregious was it of him to talk about the referees? Because Edie had 2 calls. There were 2 calls that went against Edie. One where he was held back, and the Tennessee player whose name escapes me right now botched the dunk, and so
was it a
Edie was fouled. Yeah, Edie was fouled. He botched the dunk, bounces it off the rim, and they call Edie for a foul. And there's literally no contact at all. So he didn't complain about that going into the half. He didn't complain about the 2 points they got free off of that. Nor did he complain about the 2 Tennessee players colliding, falling on the ground, Edie being somehow 5 feet away and calling Edie for a foul on that. So, I mean, you win some, you lose some.
Right.
And
so, oh, go ahead.
I mean, he did take the technical as well, which, you can argue that fires players up or gets referees to listen, but I just thought that was kind of low class to call out the referees like that.
Yeah. So I will address Damon's comment. No, but still last year started the same way. But last year I felt like, last year we were 30th in defensive efficiency in KenPom at this point. And
That's
this
about
year,
right, yeah.
This year we're 5th. Like I think the biggest difference to me, and Frank, you're the stats guy, so you understand this way better than I do. But I think the effectiveness we've had on the defensive side has been what's kind of not won us games, but at least kept ugly games close.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, especially in the first half against Marquette, Purdue did a really good job of running them off the line and just taking away their threes. And so Painter made a comment, and that Tyler Kolek, Oso Ighodaro are going to do their thing. And you just have to basically decide when you play Marquette, what are you gonna give up?
Right.
And so
give up the 3 or give up a guaranteed 2.
Well, and his decision was to let Kolek and Ighodaro kind of do their thing, contest it as best you can, but take away threes.
Yeah.
And so for the most part, we did that. They're a pretty good shooting team. They didn't shoot the ball that well, especially in the first half. They got a couple open in transition, which is hard to guard. But, I just feel like, defensively, I didn't expect defense to carry us as far as it has. I'll just say that much.
Yeah. So Nick here says, I may be crazy, but do you guys feel like the talent is down this year too? And compared to last year, I feel like this is the best shot at a natty we're going to have. I wouldn't agree with that, because we added Lance Jones, Miles Colvin, and Cam Heady, who are just athletic freaks that we just didn't have last year. And that's why we were 270th in the country in pace.
Yeah, we were one of the slowest teams. No, we cracked the 300 mark last season in pace. We were one of the slowest teams. Addressing a few viewer comments here. Last year we were unknown. This year we're known. So we started out with a better rating. No. So as far as KenPom goes, he does make it kind of a black box in terms of how he does his rankings. He does factor in some stuff from previous seasons, especially really early on. Usually by December, it's everything that's in there is from last season. But his rankings are entirely based on what happens on the court and has nothing to do with like expectations or opinion. Yeah. So, the fact that we have gone from, I think we started the season like close to 20th in defense, and we've worked our way up to third, and now we're fifth.
Yeah.
It's purely at this point, purely due to what we've done on the court.
Yeah.
I think Edie's done a good job of just going straight up and making like just creating a difficult shot and learning also when to block as well.
That and Edie's footwork is considerably better from a, like, when he goes into drop, he seems a lot more comfortable on that closeout.
Yeah.
Frank, you would know that better than I would, but
no, he definitely does. There were a couple possessions against Marquette where I felt like he just maybe didn't give the best effort. Outside of that, though, I felt like he's looked pretty good defensively. He's quicker. He's making better decisions. He's not dropping in every possession like we saw last season.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there are some games, I know against Rutgers last season, against Penn State in the tournament, he was switching, but he's playing up higher on the drop as well, and just, choking guys' ability to get to the lane and kind of blow past him. But yeah, I didn't realize he'd lost a little bit of weight in the offseason.
He seems a little faster. Nick said, no, I meant opposing team's talent. No, I honestly think Marquette is pretty loaded. Tennessee is the big thing that I thought about with Tennessee is that Rick Barnes is like a Steelers coach when it comes to just like hard-nosed defense and make it work on the offense.
Yeah. I mean, and that's always been the big question about Tennessee, is what you're going to get defensively, but can they score? And that goes back as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
But when I think about, like, it's still early, as we've talked about, but like, I mean, realistically, Michigan State's stacked. They haven't been able to put it all together.
Yeah.
But like, they are a stacked team, talent wise.
Come February, they could be terrifying.
I mean, UNC, they have a lot of experience. Again, they've dropped a couple games now, but like, they're a really good team.
I had somebody on Twitter and was talking about, like, it just seems like with Armando Bacot coming back and some of the pieces they've had come back, they like just can't meet that level of the Final Four team that they did a couple years ago. It just seems very, I don't know. They just seem out of whack, if that makes sense.
Some comments here as they're stacking up here. Seeing TKR's improvement has been nice. He can bully his way into the paint. Agreed.
Yes.
And that run, I think it was against Tennessee, right? Mm-hmm. That run where Edie got in foul trouble and he just, or no, it was against Gonzaga. He went, 6 straight points. He hit that 3 early in the game against Marquette.
Yeah.
And listening to him, in the post game interview after Gonzaga, he is he's a confident guy.
Yeah.
Like borderline arrogant. I didn't expect that from him. So that was that was really really good to see. And he's a very skilled player, and that's what people have said. Like, why is he starting? Why is he starting?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of that lately. This guy should be on the bench. That guy should be on the bench. TKR is on the floor almost exclusively with Edie, so he's just not going to get as many opportunities. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
But honestly, when we go to that small ball where TKR's at the 5, I want to say Mason's at the 4, and then we go from there. And TKR gets it on that low block, and he just like bullies his way into the lane. That is one of my favorite plays that we do, because I just love seeing him be that physical, because we just didn't see that last year.
Well, and he said in one of the post-game interviews that there are some spots that he knows if he's on the court and he's being guarded one-on-one, he's going to score every time, and he's going to look to score every time. And it just like, that's why I say, like, he's confident, he's borderline arrogant.
Yeah.
Which I don't have a problem with. It just surprised me because he's kind of you don't see that in his demeanor in terms of how he plays.
Right.
So interesting comment here, or not, but a good comment here. Marquette is one of the better young coaches in college football, and Shaka Smart, someone who has Buckeye fans.
I'm assuming basketball.
If we need a new coach soon. Eric's got football on his mind, but Shaka's
I've always really liked Shaka. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see him, like how he's transitioned, right? Because at VCU he was known for his diamond press, like his madman, that kind of havoc. I think he called
squirrely.
It. Yeah, they followed him, said yes, he meant basketball, but so just that chaos. And then we saw some of that at Texas, And like he didn't have a ton of success at Texas. I think he was fired. He didn't leave because Chris Beard came in.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Marquette, and he's chained together some really good seasons there. So,
and I feel like
personality wise, he's great, and I love like you hear him talk about Purdue, and you hear him talk about Painter. Like he has a ton of
amount of respect. Yeah. And so I really enjoy the his fire, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Nick wants to know about UConn. I mean, I think UConn, talent wise, like they lost, what's his name to the NBA?
Yeah, that guy.
That guy last season, they lost him to the NBA, and they lost Sanogo, but they've kind of just picked up where they left off. Donovan Clingan's in the conversation at least for National Player of the Year. I don't see why.
He's not going to win it, but
and like it doesn't matter to me whether Edey wins it again or not. Like I genuinely don't care. I care more about winning in the tournament. But, I just haven't seen that from Donovan Clingan yet. Tristan Newton's back. So he's obviously going to be a tough guy to guard. Nick Burris, want to see more of Heidi. That kid is good. Agreed.
He is,
and honestly, where he makes the biggest impact right now is on the defensive end. Like he is, especially on ball. He's really, really good on ball.
And will say this,
him take some of those minutes from Morton too, which is crazy.
I will say this: you will see Heidi be a all Big Ten defensive team, and he will be our next defensive guy that we've had over the last 10 years.
And that's the thing. Offensively, he's great. We've seen him hit some open threes, which he obviously is a good sign for a freshman. We've seen he's dangerous in the corner. You close out on him, he's going to cut to the basket. We've seen him, get hit on a couple lobs this season. He's extremely athletic.
Hey Frank, carry it for a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
Right here.
Drop some comments. But I think Heidi, in the corners is dangerous just because of his ability to attack the basket. But ultimately defensively is where he's going to make his impact most known. And like Painter's talked about, like it's unfortunate that when we're so deep, you're only going to run plays for your top 3, your top 4 guys. And so he's not going to get a whole lot drawn up for him offensively, but it's good to see him kind of capitalize when needed. So, and then we have a comment here. He played college ball at Kenyon College here in Ohio. Was that Shaka Smart? If you're still around, I would love to know if that's the case, because if so, I didn't know that. And I'm no longer flying solo.
Yeah, I'm back.
Short-lived.
I know.
So I guess Dylan's gone. I guess he's vanished.
He said he's working on trying to get back in.
Yeah.
Not sure what he's got going on, but I think the and I know there's been a lot of talk about bringing Heidi in to the starting lineup and benching Lawyer or this or that, blah blah blah. And I made the comment. I made the comment the other day about, like, you can't bring all of your talent into the first string, like first line, if we're going to use hockey terms, and then have such a drop off to the second team that you end up giving up a 15-point lead.
Well, and Painter's talked about, I think, the most controversy over who should start where. And like, starting, especially for a Matt Painter team, like starting doesn't mean much. It really doesn't, because we've seen, for example, Caleb First. He starts the game but plays 8 minutes. So like it ultimately, like what matters is who finishes the game. But like that 3 position, you have Fletch, you have Colvin, you have Heidi, you have Morton. Like it's just pick 2 of those 4. And I mean, that's basically going to be every night. Yeah. But I think the fact that Colvin, comes in off the bench and he's so energetic and so athletic, and you bring him in when the other team's worn down a little bit, like Painter says, like he likes that. Like he wants to continue with that. Because, you're a little bit tired. Now you have to guard Miles Colvin, who's really fast and he's
just kind of
agile,
running around in circles. Yeah. I do like this from the OHIO podcast. Which Big Ten team do you believe will challenge the Boilers the most this season? I'm just gonna say Rutgers from the start, because it seems like we always fight those guys all the time, and I think that they fit that mold of teams we struggle against in the tournament. Those fast, small, quick kind of teams like that. But other than maybe a Northwestern.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, about 3 different teams went through my head when I saw that. Preseason, I would have said Maryland. And seeing how much they've struggled on the defensive end this season,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure that's still the case. I mean, the guys are getting confused on switches. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah. Like they just look like they've never played defense before.
Yeah, and it's guys who are experienced too.
Yeah.
That being said, I think they figure that out come conference play. So I'm
I
not
hope
going to
so.
write them off entirely. Man, like I want to say Michigan State is probably going to be my answer. The only caveat to that is we only play them at Mackey.
Yeah,
and
a
where they
game like
historically
that
just
at
don't
Mackey.
play well. Yeah.
Ooh.
And we've had, one of the Michigan State podcasts talk about, they just know when they go to Mackey, it's just going to be a beatdown every year.
Yeah.
Because they are like, they're going to figure it out. They're not going to continue to shoot as badly as they have. And they've played a tough schedule so far. You can never count out Iowa, though, against Purdue also.
Yeah.
It just seems like Iowa's the team that we get up every year. We get a 15-point, 20-point lead on, and then 10 minutes later, it's a 3-point game. Like it's so like their ability to press Purdue and get back in to the game has always causes problems. But between Maryland, Michigan State, and Iowa, I think are really the three big ones. And because of the rivalry aspect, I'll throw in Indiana too.
Yeah. I honestly, and this is no dig at Indiana, but I think the recent history with Rutgers, I feel like that is becoming a bigger rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, and during the period where Indiana kind of went through their down years, where Purdue won every game for I think 6 years, 7 years straight. The Archie Miller era. I felt like Michigan State was more of a rival because we were always battling those guys for recruits. And we were typically top 3 in the Big Ten. So it was always the game that the fans showed out for. But with Rutgers knocking us off twice now, after being number 1 and kind of
thank God we don't play Rutgers this week after when we get
jeez. So Chris, question for you. Purdue will in all likelihood be ranked number 1 in the AP poll. Will be the first Big Ten team ever to be ranked number 1 3 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
Do you believe Purdue is the best team in the country? And if not, who would challenge them for that?
So I think, and I'm trying to maintain my homerness with this question.
Let it go. Just
so
you're a talking head. You're not a Purdue fan right now.
Yeah, it's true. I think Purdue is the best team in the country because of their defense. The guard play from Braden Smith has been fantastic, which I will touch on in a minute. Fletcher Lawyer, after some Twitter hate, decided he was going to go bananas. But the defensive side has been, for me, in the early 6-game part of the season, the most impressive part of the season so far. I did not think we would be a top 5 defense coming into this season. I thought we would do enough to keep us close, but not be kind of smothering, which it's been at times. I think that obviously down low you've got the biggest guy in the country and the most dominant force in the country.
Oh, there are some guys who are taller than him. Actually, I looked them up today because I was having an argument on some form of social media about he's only good because he's tall, and I found guys who were taller. Jamarian Sharp, right? He's 7'5". Yeah, and he's averaging 5 points a game.
Yeah.
Connor Vanover 3 points a game. For Missouri now.
Yeah.
So, he's big, yes, but he's also skilled. Let's be realistic. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely think that the guard play has been fantastic, and I'm about to and the OHIO podcast said Arizona looked really solid to me. Gaylor looked really athletic to me as well. I totally agree. It is I kind of think it's very close between Purdue and Arizona.
Yeah,
I think those are very close teams.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, I think that Baylor. I haven't seen Houston play. I haven't. They're number 2 in Ken Palm. So I can't offer an opinion there.
Yeah.
UConn, I think, has, UConn, I feel like, has 3 really good players where, Purdue has Zach Edey, who, is a top 3 realistic player in college basketball right now. But UConn has 3 of the top 10. That being said, Purdue, I feel like, is better top to bottom, and that, like, there's
Their
not a huge
balance
drop off.
is
Yeah,
a lot
I mean,
better.
so like we're bringing in guys on our bench who have started 30 plus games,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like the one team really that could give them a run would be Arizona. I'm so excited to go to that game in Indianapolis here in a few weeks.
I really want to like end up just pulling the trigger and getting tickets to that game.
Yeah, I bought them several months ago. So
yeah.
But yeah, I really think that it's probably between Purdue and Arizona.
Yeah.
And that game's not really going to decide that for me, probably, because it's a crazy thing about, like, it's only college basketball where, like, one team beats another team, and then, like, the assumption is, like, the team who won is better.
Yeah.
Like, it's only, and no other sport doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of go on my tangent here, Frank.
Let's do it.
If you let me.
No, it's time.
Today I was watching, I can't remember the game, but it was halftime. I want to say it was on CBS, but it might have been the halftime of the Missouri game or something. I don't remember. Long story short, one of the commentators said that the biggest efficiency for Purdue is their guard size. So they're not as big as Arizona. They're not as big as UConn, I think was the other one that was brought up. And that sent me to the moon. Just for the simple fact that last year it was the guards are inexperienced. This time it's the guards are not big enough. Like the national, and I understand losing to Fairleigh Dickinson or losing to whoever we lost to.
It's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. Yeah.
It doesn't look good, but you really delegitimize these players who are playing really good basketball when you try and find reasons to attack them.
And I've tried to look at this with the most, like, unbiased eye, but, like, when you go to halftime against Gonzaga, it's like, well, Purdue's got to hit some outside shots. Well, like, Purdue hadn't attempted many outside shots in that game. But, like, okay, yeah, it's 2023. We're playing college basketball. Sure, fair criticism. And so then Purdue hit some outside shots, and then it's like, well, Purdue has to show that they can handle physicality and they can handle pressure. That was the criticism. Well, let me go play against Tennessee. We handled physicality.
Was such a ugly beatdown. Like, that was as physical of a game as I've seen in the last half decade.
And so then, Seth Greenberg saying, well, Marquette's a team that gets up into you and they pressure the ball and they pick you up full court. And, that was Purdue's Achilles heel last year. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. It wasn't. Purdue was one of the best teams in the country against the press last season. They were the 18th most pressed team in the country, the second most among all Power 6 teams. And they were in the 92nd percentile against the press. I mean, like, it just...
Weird stats and analytics.
Tired of that narrative. We saw him play Marquette, and we saw the pressure get to Braden a little bit, but then we started running, and again, it's like the painter can't adjust. Well, we saw some great adjustments.
Yeah,
like they were really blitzing Braden, up to half court. He would lift Gillis, he would lift Lance Jones to give him that outlet pass because we don't have the pick and pop to attack that. And then we get Edey behind. The double team, like, boom, it's easy from there.
And the thing I loved was that Edey or TKR, it didn't matter who it was, they would just kind of walk in front of that guy who was trying to guard Braden up the court just to give him a breather. And I loved it.
But now the criticism is, well, Purdue needs to make free throws. So, Purdue on the season, 69%. Could it be better? Sure. But, we look at UConn last year, 72. We look at Kansas the year before, 70. So again,
we're on par.
I shouldn't get into discussions on social media, but I do.
Yeah,
from time to time. So I'm like, you're really telling me that the 1%, because it was like, well, Purdue's not a championship team because they miss free throws down the stretch. I'm like, well, so you're telling me 1%, that's the difference between a championship team and a a team that's going to choke in the first round.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, and it's a fair criticism. We have had some bad luck in the tournament, but I think Field of 68 said it best, and that if Purdue had made one Final Four in recent years, we realistically would be looked at as the most dominant program in college basketball right now.
100%.
And that's an unbiased opinion. That like you take away, like we've had, like what are we, like 68-14, like in the last like 3 seasons or something.
Well,
I mean, it's crazy.
No, they said 33-0 in non-conference or some stuff in the last 3 seasons outside of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and like,
but you take one of those, and it completely changes the narrative.
And then Fairleigh Dickinson, it was not Matt Painter's fault. And I will die on this hill. It was not Matt Painter's fault. Guys going 5 for 26 from 3 is what cost Purdue that game.
Yeah. You hit
2 more of those shots to win, we win.
Yeah.
All but one of those threes, according to Synergy Sports, were wide open threes. And their definition of wide open is it wasn't a defender within 5 feet. So it just, I mean, Ryan Klein, if he makes one more free throw, we go to a Final Four.
Yeah.
Against Virginia. Yeah. So
if they actually start the clock on time against Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah. If Bo Borowski doesn't come from the other side of the court to overrule the official who, made the original possession call.
Yeah.
Purdue wins that game. So, I mean, granted, there are lots of things that, go in a lot of variables there, but, it's not due to bad coaching.
I think it's disingenuous to Matt Painter and the program as a whole that we keep getting dogged on. And I know that's a little bit of a homer thought process, but I just don't think that, I mean, I would say Painter's a top 10 coach in the country. I just what I think, even if he hasn't made a Final Four. I mean,
so are you in the camp of people? And there still exists. Oh, they still exist in large quantity. We saw at the Virginia Tech game, Chris. Are you in the camp of people who believes that his in-game adjustments are bad and they need improvement?
No.
Neither am I. But
no, because what it is that those are people who don't understand the game past pass ball, shoot ball.
Yeah, no, and unfortunately that is the case. And like, because every time someone says that, I ask the question like, oh, okay, like what would you like to see him do differently in a game that we lost? And no one has an answer.
But like you and I just talked about the fact that, you brought Jones up for an outlet, or you have Edey kind of like push that defender off Braden enough. That alone is an in-game adjustment that completely changes the aspect of a game.
And I always go back to like one of the best games I've ever seen in college basketball in person. But Purdue, Michigan State 2016, Caleb Swanigan's freshman year. That was the Denzel Valentine, Bryn Forbes team for Michigan State, went into overtime.
Yeah.
But like Michigan State was frazzled in that first half, and Rayfield Davis did go off for 5 threes. But Michigan State did not expect to have Purdue's best defender guarding their second best player.
Right.
Rayfield Davis came out guarding Bryn Forbes and locked him up. He didn't score in that game.
And scored inch.
But it was like we're gonna let Denzel Valentine do his thing because he's gonna score 20 points.
Yeah.
So we're gonna take away the wide open guy, the lights out shooter that he's gonna pass it to when he drives into a double team, and we're just gonna play Denzel Valentine straight up.
A lot of it reminded me of what IU did against Hammonds friggin' forever ago, where I think AJ had like 31 points and the rest of the team hardly had anything.
Yeah, that was kind of his redemption game, I guess.
Right.
He was under a lot of criticism that season.
But you know what I'm saying though, like it was one of those where they were willing to let AJ have his and everybody else was going to get stopped.
Yeah, but and unfortunately it sounds arrogant to say, but most people can't recognize an in-game adjustment. It's just, it's the reality of the sport.
Yeah.
But I think, Painter's constantly making adjustments. when teams start to overplay that kind of ram screen that we use to get into the Chicago action, and then he runs the counter, right, where Edie acts like he's going to take the screen and then back cuts for a lob, and just like things like that. Like that's just
what in our playbook there's 312 plays or something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like Painter is a top 5 offensive coach.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because he kind of set out as, being known as a defensive coach, and then kind of switched.
Because during the baby Boilers, it was defense all day and every day.
And I love what he says about his team and that, or his playbook, and that, people always compliment me. I run great stuff. Well, I stole everything that's in there. Everything is in there is stolen. But, but it happens across basketball, but he's the only one that's going to actually admit it.
Right.
Which I appreciate.
And that's a big thing. But Frank, I'll pose a question to you within the last 14 minutes we have. What do you think is the rest of non-con and maybe the beginning of conference going to look like for this team? Because we've seen this team get to one the last 2 seasons, and it seems like it gets too big for him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's back.
And he looks like he may or may not be conscious. So
I wish I wasn't.
Dylan, to bring you up to speed, we're talking about, what does this look like now that Purdue's number 1? And, in the last couple of seasons, we've seen Purdue get to number 1 and then, immediately lose right after and
step on their dick.
So, I mean, yeah, we have Texas Southern coming up, who is currently ranked 260th in KenPom. They have the 332nd ranked offense.
Trap game.
I mean, yeah,
seriously though, like,
they shoot 24.5% from 3. So naturally, I expect them to go 40%.
Yep,
against
100%. Never fails.
Yeah, they turn the ball over a ton. They're a horrible free throw shooting team. You just look at you look at them on KenPom, it's just red all the way down.
Yeah. So invert all of that.
Yeah, effectively. But I like the fact that we do have comment here. Texas Southern, didn't Disney make a movie about that? Yeah.
Eric, are you a Disney adult? I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't you judge him for that.
Are you a Disney adult?
I have a child.
I like
that automatic. Well, it's different.
I like the fact that we kind of have one more tune-up game, I'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go to Northwestern.
Yeah.
And for anyone
Northwestern's feisty, man.
They are. Yeah.
They are.
Well, and when we had the group from the Wild
crackheads.
Chat on, for anyone who hasn't listened to that, we did preview the Purdue Northwestern basketball game a bit when we had those guys on here. Great conversation. Definitely go back and listen to that. But their big question for their own team was, who else is going to step up besides Boo Buie? Because last year it was the Boo Buie and Chase Audee's show, and this year it's kind of been the Boo Buie show. But recently we've seen Barnhizer step up.
Barnhizer?
Yeah, Brooks Barnhizer.
Where do they find these kids and their names?
Lots of alliteration going on that team. We got Boo Buie and Brooks Barnhizer.
I can't keep it straight.
I love me some Boo Buie.
Yeah.
But, interestingly, last season we saw Matthew Nicholson was one of the few guys who gave Edie problems in the Big Ten. And the other thing that scares me about Northwestern is they are a post-trapping team when they don't play Purdue. So Purdue forces teams to post double who aren't necessarily used to it. But Northwestern's a team who traps the post almost every game, and that scares me. That being said, the mentality of the players, they seem locked in. They seem like whether we're playing Texas Southern or we're playing on the road at Northwestern, they seem to be kind of bringing that same mentality.
Yeah, for sure.
Every single night.
They definitely seem and I might have mentioned it in the group chat. I know I've said it to a few people, but that this team seems very much in a revenge redemption type mode, and they are very locked in with each other.
And there's something to be said about the experience that Braden and Fletcher have. Not just, starting 35 games, however many games they started last season, but, winning the Big Ten tournament, playing back-to-back games, and then doing the same thing at the PK 85 tournament, and then experiencing the most embarrassing thing that can happen to a team in college basketball, something that only happened once before in history. So they've been there. They understand what it takes.
In other words, they've seen some shit.
They've seen,
basically.
Yeah.
Adversity builds character.
But currently Northwestern, to drop some numbers, 63rd in offense in KenPom, 79th in defense. They are one of the slowest teams in the country, which is interesting. They take care of the basketball and they rebound well. Haven't shot the ball great, only 29% on the season. So again, expect 40%.
Yeah.
Great free throw shooting team, and they get to the line quite a bit. So yeah, a guy like Boo Buie, who in my opinion is one of the top 3 guards in the conference, scares me. But
I think you stick Ethan Morton on that dude and just let him eat.
If Purdue is who Purdue thinks they are, they win this game by 7, in my opinion. That's my
They are who we thought
take
they were.
Northwestern.
Right.
Yeah. And we're only, we had a comment earlier, we're only six games into the season. I agree.
Yeah.
How do we react once teams start playing us differently?
Yeah.
Teams are starting to have to respect the high ball screens from Braden, like we talked about earlier. So how do we respond to that?
But those high ball screens open up other things for other guys.
Oh, here we got a comment here. Yeah, right. We both expect someone to hit a 3 since they were playing the YMCA. They haven't hit one since they played in the YMCA league when they were going up.
Yes.
Hit 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expect somebody
this
to
guy
hit
could
like
talk into a microphone.
Yeah. Well, and so question for you guys.
No.
We, for anyone who's listening or watching, we us and the Boiler Express podcast, we text each other during games, and sometimes we get emotional.
Day, really?
Yeah.
Sometimes we get emotional.
Sometimes we get emotional. We all want Purdue to win, right? And that emotion comes out in different ways. But we had a disagreement
for like 3 straight days. Yeah.
we were
Chris just throws cuss words around.
Yeah,
so gets confused.
Yeah.
So like there are 5 of us who actually are on the show, and then we have our silent partner who just acts in the background, who participates in these conversations
our advisor
as well.
He's the producer.
Yeah. But he, it seemed like we were evenly split during Gonzaga. So Graham Ike from Gonzaga starts off, Edie just lets him shoot. He's a 6'10", 6'11" center. Edie lets him shoot, bricks the first one. Then he goes, hits 2 more. Like he just hits shot number 2, shot number 3. And the disagreement we were having is, should we leave him open or should we not? The guy was 1 for 9 from 3 in his career. Now he was 2 for 2 in an exhibition game this season. So Damon says, I hate Chris at least 5 or 6 different times during the basketball season.
Not wrong. Feelings mutual.
So the question I'm posing is, a guy who's 1 for 9 in actual college basketball play in his career, he starts the game 2 for 3. Do you change how you defend him, or do you invite him to keep shooting?
Invite him to keep shooting, because those numbers aren't going to hold up.
Dylan, what do you think?
Keep shooting.
Yeah.
Let him keep shooting?
Yeah.
Well, he finished the game 2 for 6.
Yeah.
And then, so where's that threshold, right? When do you change? Because like there is a human factor that you can't measure. He's in the zone, he's feeling it, he's got some confidence. Is it 4 for 4? Is it 5 for 5? Is it 4?
I will be 100% honest. I think that is a coach Painter and a game feel thing.
Yeah.
I think that is all a momentum and game feel type of decision.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm crazy with that. And maybe some people, some people out there don't think game feel is a real thing. I totally believe it.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah. I think
we've never been able to measure it.
No.
That being said, I believe it's a real thing.
Yes. 100%.
It goes in with confidence. It goes on with how you're feeling.
Ultimate Boiler says, I think defense should be played bar none. Doesn't matter if their shooting stats aren't there. Why not just play
Ultimate
defense?
Boiler guy should start his own podcast.
Someone is going to miss a shot more often they're being guarded. So
So at the college basketball, at the high major level, let's say, and especially at the NBA level, but this is a college podcast, but you have to decide what you're going to give up. You have to give up something. Mm-hmm. And I think that I liked the way Purdue defended that, and that they're playing the highest probability ever.
Yeah.
Like when you keep Edie in the paint in that scenario, and you let a guy who hasn't attempted a ton of threes and he's only hit 1 of them in his career shoot, you let him shoot.
Yeah.
I think that's better than getting him in the paint. And that's why I don't want to see Zach Edey shoot threes this season. So to use a pro basketball reference, like if you hit, if you force Joel Embiid to take a three, that's a win. Like that's a win for you defensively.
Yeah.
Because he's much more dangerous in the paint.
Yeah.
And same with Graham Ike. So I think that's something that you have to give up. And there's an interesting comment here. As a coach, the rule of law is 3. You will often see that during a timeout. Eric, if you could expand on that a little bit more, I would love to know.
I would love to hear that.
Hey, Eric, why don't we just send you a link and you hop on the damn podcast?
Yeah,
I would love to know what
you should have done that while I was not here for 45 minutes.
We must be perfect. But Damon, I ultimately agree in that, like, ideally every shot's going to be contested. But in listening to a lot of professional coaches talk that like about their defensive schemes and listening to practices and stuff. I spent a lot of time this summer just listening to pro practices, and they talk about like this is what we're willing to give up and this is what we're going to try to take away.
It's the numbers game. It's taking an 80% 2-foot shot or guarding that versus a 15% 3-point shot.
But I think if you close out hard on him and he blows right past Edey, there's no one else to stop him.
Right.
So I would rather him take a shot on the perimeter than get an easy dunk. So here we have some more from Eric. Take a zone defense, for instance. If they hit 3 shots on you, you leave the zone. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Okay. So actual three shots. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant 3-point shots. So
like it.
You leave the zone for man unless you want to play a zone. Yeah, you're gonna. You're a zone
same
team.
theory is applied to a player who is shooting better than his numbers suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
When like Izzo, I know Izzo is famous for saying that like things always converge to their mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
A guy may start 3 for 3 from 3 or 4 for 4, but if he's a 25% 3-point shooter, he's bound to miss some. It's the law of averages. That's what he calls it.
Yeah.
The law of averages.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't get paid to make those decisions.
No, for sure.
And it's like we talked about going forward on 4th down. You look like a genius if it works, and you look like an idiot if it doesn't.
Yep.
But ultimately, I was okay with letting him hit a couple threes versus the alternative. But ideally, yes, every shot's being contested for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Well, boys, right about an hour. We did pretty good job. Wow.
Yeah, you guys
never
did great.
Happens.
Yeah.
You guys
we did.
Happens.
Yeah, we did pretty good job today. We didn't
The
have
Chris and
Dylan
Frank
run his
show
mouth.
was fantastic.
Well, for a minute, Dylan, it was just the Frank show. Chris just bailed.
Yeah, no, I was watching while I was deleting a ton of files because
Yeah.
apparently my file, my computer had too much crap
So
on it.
So Dylan, I want to get your take. Do you feel like Purdue is unnecessarily disrespected right now?
Oh yeah, there's really no reason for it. I mean,
it's purely based on history, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the number one thing that other fans bring up is Fairleigh Dickinson. Fairleigh Dickinson. That's all you hear. Other than that, they have no other.
Barely my Dickinson.
Other than that,
just
they have
it's like
no other not.
It's like you can be having an intelligent discussion about basketball, and someone will just drop that.
Yeah,
there's
once
a certain
drop the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson, then they're like, "See you, you're nothing."
Yeah,
you're not going to have a knowledgeable conversation.
There's a certain member of Big Ben or a particular individual who has a knack for that, and just Fairleigh Dickinson every time basketball comes up
because they're not smart enough to come up with an intelligent.
Yeah,
and listen, I'm not
because they haven't made a tourney in like 4 years. But.
Well, that happens.
No,
can't relate.
Okay, I thought we were talking about this season, and like, is it embarrassing? Yeah. Did I wish it didn't happen? 100%.
Sure, it sucks, but like, hey, listen, man, like shit happens. Yeah. And I think I don't understand the hate around Edey either. Like, he's not like a Grayson Allen type, right? Like, he's not. If anything, he takes the hits. You see the kid has literal scars on his arms that he did not have before he got to Purdue. And
so we have a question here. Does something that happened 7-8 months ago really fall into history? Well, I guess by history, I mean the last 3 seasons, and like Purdue seems to get the brunt of St. Peter's, and people seem to forget that they upset Kentucky, number 2 seed Kentucky as well. Yeah. It's like that gets forgotten.
My thing is there's an entire off season between the players that played on that team last year and players that played on the team this year.
Yeah.
While they might be the same players, it is worlds different.
Oh yeah, especially in college.
Especially when you get smoked like that.
That's the second half of this comment. Plus, it's the same team, same players, and I would argue that's true to a degree. but I think that Lance Jones adds an element that we didn't have last season.
100%. Lance Jones, Edie, and Miles Corbin.
Shot he put up and drained like it was no big deal.
Yeah,
right.
I'm telling you all, go see Lance Jones play. Like it's hard to respect his athleticism until you see it in person. I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. And so there was no one on Purdue's roster last season. I mean, he's borderline Jaden Ivey athletic in transition. So, and I know I did listen to a Gonzaga podcast. I reached out to them to try to see if they want to talk about the Gonzaga game. They never responded. But they were like, it's basically the same team from last year. It should be an easy win for Gonzaga before the game. And that's why I asked them, I'm like, let's talk about this, because it's not the same team. I mean,
no.
We're returning Zach Edey, but like we didn't have a Lance Jones last season.
Yeah.
We didn't have a Cam Heidi. We didn't have a Miles Colvin.
Yeah.
You know,
and those three alone
10 players.
Completely change the aspect. Because
are our centerpieces the same? Sure.
Yeah,
but you know, the guys on the periphery are very, very different. So
Zach Edey's a whole different beast, I feel like, this year, just mentally.
He seems meaner.
That's what I was gonna say. You saw, I forget what play he made, but he stares at the away bench. Just sits there and like 2 seconds, stares, walks away. He's like not. He just seems like he's in the zone and that he wants to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's there to kill somebody. Whoever thinks they're gonna guard him is in for a tough night because he's gonna beat their ass.
Like comment here. He's one of those guys everyone will hate since he's not on their team. Yeah, everyone loves to hate Zach Edey. They love to call him overrated. They love to call him, you know, if he wasn't 7'4", then he wouldn't be good at basketball. But yeah, man, if you were to say, hey, Zach Edey wants to come play for your team, I guarantee they'd be like, oh yeah, for sure.
I hate this word, but I like the swagger Edey has this year.
Yeah,
he's just got a different oomph to him. I don't know what it is, but it's different.
So Purdue's had a comment here. Purdue's had the same trend for the last 3 seasons. Great regular season, fumble in March. Agreed. Yeah, and that's ultimately the reason why we're, so immensely disrespected right now. Mm-hmm. Because people will say like, okay, yeah, Purdue started 6-0. They have the best resume in the country. They're number 1 in KenPom. They're number 1 in AP. Who cares? They're going to choke again. Mm-hmm. So like, I mean, I shouldn't care. Like I said I shouldn't care, but it's really getting on my nerves because commentary is doing it. It's like Jay Billis said, it's like they can't get the ball into Edey. There's no offense. Like, I'm like, no, like that. Are you watching the same game, man? Like Edey's drawing a double team, a triple team sometimes. Like,
exactly, Eric. He's no longer your buddy guy.
Pal.
Yeah, comment here. You're saying Zach has been an American long enough that the Canada nice has worn off of him. Yeah. Yep. And then, he's a interesting comment here. Just like Hunter Dickinson. No, I would love Hunter Dickinson if he was at Purdue. Maybe not a popular opinion, but I would. Now, I'm going to agree with one caveat here. He shuts down his podcast.
Yeah. That dude sticks his mouth more than anything I've ever seen with that dumb.
Oh, he calls opposing players soft, opposing fan bases soft, like, and stuff like that. Like, and then he's like, oh, everyone hates me. I'm the, number 1 enemy. I'm like, dude, you bring it on yourself. Like you're like a WWE villain,
you gotta
man.
Expect for it to come back at you.
Yeah.
It's bad for Fox Sports and ESPN are essentially saying Purdue does nothing in March when it matters. Right. I mean, and like we hear about it during games. We hear about like, oh, Purdue just, they're like, and it's like Purdue's 8 for 10 from 3. And we talk about, our, like the guards are struggling. Yeah.
But hey, let's change that. Let's change that aspect of things and not give them anything to talk about.
So, I mean, given all this conversation about what's happened in recent tournaments, in your all's opinion, what's different this season that we've seen so far? Why could this be the season?
It's the whole team's mentality. It's business like. It's workman-like lunch pail hard hat mentality.
You know what they call that, Chris? Grit. They're gritty. They're tough. I think Zach goes into games now knowing he's going to get beat up, knowing they're going to quite literally scratch and claw at him.
I'm not surprised if he doesn't get the shit beat out of him with a barbell during practice now.
Zach just has it. I don't know what it is, but he's got it this year.
Yeah, and see, Damon, I appreciate you keeping us level here because I don't want to get my head too high in the clouds. But you make a good point. That was being said last year too. So I think the one thing I've noticed is that we're not complaining this season. Like,
yeah,
things don't go our way on the officiating side. Like,
We're just going.
I mean, so like Edie even said it in a post game interview. It's like, hey, they miss calls. Like, we need to stop missing layups. Like we can't. You can't say anything about the officiating. We're missing layups. So like, they're human beings. Like, but like last season, we kind of saw Painter go off on the referees at Maryland's. Like, you can't play this physical. You got to make these calls. But it just seems like, hey, like this is how it is. Let's go play.
We should invite Ultimate Boiler onto the podcast.
Yeah. I really like. He's had a lot of really good insight.
Yeah, we should.
And defense is better. The one thing I think is different about this team, from what I've seen so far, is our ability to just give you different looks with different lineups. Like, all right, you're going to go small. I mean, yeah, sure, we're going to keep Edie on the floor, but we'll put in first TKR, Lawyer and Braden. Like, now we have an extremely athletic lineup outside of Edie, who is athletic for a 7'4" guy. But that's what I think is different.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had a good one, boys. Well, you guys did. I'm glad I hopped on the last 10 minutes.
Again, thank you for everybody for stopping by. Ultimate Boiler, you should start your own podcast because you're fantastic. Thank you to everybody who stopped in, all the comments. Thank you to Big Banner, Blitzboards. Check them out at cincyblitzboards.com. Martin Vintage, remember, take or use BXP at checkout for 10% of Ultimate Athletic Fletch. Drive the ball more. It's not the most athletic looking drive of the basket, but he gets in and gives us another look.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment here about Fletch driving to the basket. And I think, he did do that last season at the beginning of the season a lot.
Totally.
All right, Ultimate Boiler, quit bringing up good points.
Yeah, he did.
Start your own podcast.
But and also people forget that Fletch was injured for at least half of last season. He had a calf injury.
Hey, bring up next comment real quick.
Boilers by a billion.
Get the damn
of course.
Boilers by a billion. Yeah. Get the damn bucket.
Yeah. But definitely check out all those guys that I just talked about. Banter, Blitzboards, Martin Vintage. Check us out on anywhere that you find podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Tinder, Grinder, whatever.
Wow. Didn't know we'd made our way to doing that.
FarmersOnly.com. Whatever.
They love us over there. We're big on Farmers Only. OnlyFans. We created our own OnlyFans.
Yeah. Oh, stand by. But be sure to check us out on all those podcasts, all the different things. ChristianMingle.com. Yeah, everything.
They wouldn't like us. I don't think they would like the way we do things.
Nope.
Those heathens.
But remember, tomorrow, IU sucks. Boilers by a billion.
Amen.
Frank,
wake up.
Yeah.
Boilers by a billion.
Boilers by a billion. Get the bucket back.
Literally, you guys really think? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All right. Let's focus on beating Northwestern as well.
Yep.
Get through that.
Well, yep. All right. Everybody have a good night. Be safe.
We
Be
love
good to each other. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in.